He thought he was only helping a nurse escape the rain. But under her white coat was a hidden badge, and in her files was the voice his mother had lost. Can kindness uncover what power tried to erase? Not sound. The woman appeared out of the rain as if the hospital itself had thrown her into the street. Caleb Warren saw her just as he was reaching for the gear shift, ready to pull away from the side entrance and call it a night. Private hospital behind him glowed with clean white light, all glass doors and quiet money. But the side street was nearly empty. Rain ran down the windshield in crooked lines, blurring the loading bay, the curb, and the row of parked cars that belonged to people who could afford to be sick in better places. He had been driving since before sunset. His shoulders ached. His shirt was damp at the collar, from helping an elderly man into the car 2 fares earlier. All he wanted was to get home, count what he had made, sleep for a few hours before the next round of bills reminded him that sleep did not pay anything. Then the woman hit the passenger side window with the flat of her hand. Caleb flinched. She was in blue scrubs and a white coat, both soaked through. Her hair was plastered to her face. One hand clutched a dark leather bag tight against her ribs, and the other hovered near the door handle like she was afraid to touch it without permission. "Please," he said through the glass. "Can you unlock the door?" Caleb looked past her. A man stood 30 yards behind her, near the corner of the building. He was not running. That made him worse. He moved slowly, steadily, hand tucked inside his coat, his eyes fixed on the woman, as if he had all the time in the world. Caleb kept his foot on the brake. "Are you hurt?" he asked, lowering the window only a few inches. "No," she said quickly. "Too quickly. I just need to get off this street." The man behind her took another step. Caleb had spent too many nights behind a wheel to ignore the feeling that came with certain passengers. Fear had a shape that it showed, in the way people checked reflections, in the way they held a bag, in the way they tried not to look back and failed every time. He unlocked the door. "Get in." The woman pulled the door open and slipped inside. Cold rain came with her. She shut the door hard, then immediately lowered her head, breathing as if she had been holding herself together by force. Caleb pulled away from the curb before asking anything else. In the rearview mirror, Fan stepped into the street and watched the car turn the corner. For half a block, neither of them spoke. The heater clicked and pushed out air that was more tired than warm. Caleb kept both hands on the wheel, eyes forward, but he watched her in quick glances. She looked like a doctor after a bad shift, except doctors did not usually run from side doors in the rain with men following them. A silver badge flashed beneath the edge of her open coat, there for a second, half hidden under wet fabric. But Caleb saw enough. Not a hospital badge, not a visitor pass. Something heavier. Something official. The woman noticed his eyes drop. She pulled the coat closed. "Your name?" Caleb asked. She hesitated. "Evelyn." "Evelyn what?" Another pause. "Mark." "Shh." He nodded once, not because he believed her completely, because people in real trouble sometimes needed a name before they could tell the truth. "I'm Caleb." "I know," she said. His fingers tightened on the wheel. She seemed to realize her mistake. "Your name is on the rideshare screen." Caleb glanced at the small phone mounted near the dashboard. It had gone dark when he ended his last fare. Maybe she had seen it before. Maybe she had not. "Where am I taking you, Evelyn?" He turned her face toward the side window. Rain and streetlights slid across her cheek. "Not home. That wasn't the question. I need to get to an office near the courthouse." "At this hour?" "Yes." Caleb gave a short, humorless breath. "Lady, nothing good happens near a courthouse before sunrise. This can't wait until sunrise." There it was again, that pressure in her voice. Not panic exactly. Panic burned fast. This was colder than panic, held down under training or pride or fear of losing something that could not be replaced. Caleb drove through a yellow light and kept to the wider streets, the ones with cameras and traffic even late at night. He told himself he was doing what any decent man would do. A woman in the rain, a man following her, a locked car, and a few safe blocks. That was all. But he had learned long ago that decent choices were rarely free. His mother had made decent choices. She had trusted a doctor who spoke gently. She had signed forms because a lawyer told her it would make things easier. By the time Caleb understood what temporary guardianship meant, her apartment had been emptied, her bank account had been frozen, and every question he asked was met with a folder he was not allowed to see. He forced the memory down. That was not tonight. That was not this woman. Evelyn shifted in the seat, and the leather bag knocked lightly against the center console. "What's in the bag?" he asked. "Work. The kind of work somebody follows you for." She looked at him then. Her eyes were tired. They were not helpless. That unsettled him more than the fear had. The kind of work that gets buried if it doesn't reach the right hands in time. Caleb slowed near an intersection. "You want the police?" "No." Her came so fast that he looked at her again. "No police," she repeated, quieter. "Not yet. Then a hospital security office?" "No." "Family?" "No, no." Caleb let the car roll through the wet street. The city was thinning out around them, turning from hospital glass to older brick buildings, closed storefronts, narrow alleys, and courthouse signs that appeared and disappeared through the rain. He should have pulled over. He should have told her this ride was over, that he had done enough, that whatever storm she was carrying belonged to people with salaries and badges and offices with locked doors. Men like Caleb were not built for those storms. Caleb got blamed, billed, and forgotten. But when he glanced at her hands, he saw that they were trembling around the bag, not dramatically. Not like someone trying to be pitied, enough to prove that whatever strength she had been using was beginning to run out. "Evelyn," he said, "if that man back there is still behind us, I need to know what I'm driving into." She looked into the side mirror. Sedan turned the corner 2 blocks back. Caleb saw her shoulders tighten. "There's an elder legal aid office near the courthouse," she said. "A woman named Gloria Mendel is waiting for me. To get there before morning. People are going to lose the last chance they have to be heard." The words hit him strangely. Elder legal aid. He looked at her more sharply than he meant to. "What kind of people?" Teasing. Evelyn did not answer right away. Her eyes moved from his face to the road ahead, then back to the mirror, where the dark sedan kept a steady distance. Then, no one listens to once a doctor and a lawyer decide they're no longer competent. Caleb's jaw locked. The wipers dragged rain across the windshield. For a moment, sound in the car was rubber against glass, and the low hum of the engine. His mother's apartment came back to him in pieces. The worn blue chair by the window. The little porcelain birds she kept on the sill. The day he found a stranger's business card taped to her door and realized decisions were being made about her life in rooms where he was not invited. He did not speak until the next light turned green. "Bed near the courthouse?" "Yes." "What street?" Evelyn gave him the cross street, then added, "There's a back entrance. If you can get me close, I can walk." "No," Caleb said. She turned to him. "If someone's following you, walking anywhere." For the first time since she climbed into the car, her face softened. Not much. The show, she could heard the difference between a man offering a ride and a man choosing a side he did not yet understand. Caleb checked the mirror again. The sedan was still there. He took a right instead of going straight, cutting behind a row of closed offices. Evelyn grabbed the door handle, startled. "Do you know where you're going?" she asked. "I drive nights," he said. Where people think the city ends, and where it actually keeps going." The sedan missed the turn. For 2 quiet blocks, Caleb allowed himself to breathe. Then Evelyn leaned forward, her voice low but firm. "Caleb, and to me. I don't need a ride home. I don't need a shelter. I don't need you to call anyone for me." He kept his eyes on the road. "What do you need?" She tightened her coat around the hidden badge and the bag in her lap. "Need you to take me to Gloria Mendel's office before daylight." Caleb did not answer her right away. The car rolled through the wet streets, past shuttered offices and dark storefronts. The name, Gloria Mendel, hung between them, like a key he did not want to touch. He knew that name. Not well, not personally, but well enough for it to pull at a place in his chest he had spent years trying to keep quiet. He kept his eyes on the road. "You know Gloria?" "Evelyn." asked. I know of her. That's not the same thing. No, Caleb said. It isn't. He checked the mirror. The sedan had fallen back after his last turn, did not comfort him. Men like the one outside the hospital did not give up because they missed a corner. They found another way, then. Caleb had seen enough from the driver's seat to know the difference between someone lost and someone patient. Evelyn's leather bag stayed pressed against her lap. She had one hand on the clasp and one hand tucked inside her coat, fabric closed over whatever badge he had seen earlier. Her breathing had steadied, but her body had not relaxed. Caleb took a slower street toward the courthouse district. Before we go any farther, he said, I need to know whether I'm helping a doctor or driving evidence away from a crime. Evelyn looked at him sharply. That's a fair question. Then answer it. She turned toward the passenger window for a moment. The rain made the outside world soft and broken. When she spoke again, her voice was lower. I'm a physician, but tonight I'm not here for a patient in a hospital bed. Caleb gave a short glance toward her coat. And the badge? Her hand moved, then stopped. She knew he had seen it. Pretending otherwise would only make him trust hers less. Slowly, she pulled the edge of the coat aside. The badge sat clipped beneath the white fabric, plain and official enough to make Caleb's stomach tighten. It was not the kind of thing a tired doctor wore by mistake. It did not make her look safer. It made everything feel larger. I assist a state investigation, she said. Clinical review. Elder care fraud. Guardianship cases. Caleb's jaw hardened. Evelyn saw it. You know what that word means, she said. I know enough. Then you know why I can't take this to the wrong desk. He almost pulled over then. His foot eased off the gas, and the car drifted toward the curb before he caught himself. The word guardianship did not enter Caleb's life like a legal term. It came with the smell of old carpet, packed boxes, and his mother's voice on a voicemail. He had stayed until the phone finally died. He had gone to offices. He had filled out forms. Had sat across from people who nodded at him with soft faces and closed folders. Everyone had told him there was a process. Everyone had told him it was complicated. Everyone had told him how a woman could lose the home she had paid for 1 month at a time simply because the wrong people decided she could no longer speak for herself. Pull into that lot, Evelyn said suddenly. Caleb looked ahead. A small office building sat dark, except for one yellow light above a side entrance. The sign by the door was too wet to read from the street. Gloria's place? He asked. Near it. Not there yet. He pulled in, shut off the engine. Evelyn checked behind them before opening the leather bag. Inside was a slim drive case, a folded packet, and a stack of paper held together by a black clip. She did not hand him the bag. She took out one sheet only. I don't want to drag you into this, she said. But you asked what you're driving. Caleb took the paper with one hand. The page was a list. Names, case numbers, dates left vague by blacked-out marks, short phrases written in the dry language people used when they did not want grief to look human. Cognitive decline, emergency petition, temporary placement, asset protection review. He hated every word. What is this? People who were declared unable to manage their own affairs after medical evaluations that don't match their real condition, Evelyn said. Some lost houses. Some lost bank accounts. Some were moved into care homes they never chose. Paper trail makes it look lawful. And you think it wasn't? I don't think, she said. I found the pattern. Caleb looked at her then. The tired doctor from the rain was still there. Something sharper stood behind her eyes. Not pride. Not fear. Duty, maybe. Or guilt. How does Gloria fit? She's been trying to reopen some of these cases for years. She couldn't get past the sealed files. Found what was missing. Caleb gave the paper back as if it might burn him. I'm not a lawyer. No. You're the man who got me away from the hospital before Russell could take this bag. The name landed cold. Russell? Behind me. So he isn't some angry boyfriend. No. Security? Private investigator. Hired muscle with clean shoes and threatening letters. Caleb let out a bitter breath. That sounded right. In his world, trouble rarely arrived, kicking doors down. It arrived with notices, fees, signatures, and men who smiled while telling you there was nothing you could do. He looked toward the street. A pair of headlights passed the lot, slowed, continued. "Why me?" he asked. "I didn't choose you," Evelyn said. "I ran out the side door, and you were there. That's supposed to make me feel better?" No. A strange silence filled the car. It was not trust yet, it was something rougher. A shared understanding that the night had already gone too far to pretend it was ordinary. Caleb put the car back in drive. "Where exactly is Gloria waiting?" 2 blocks east. Back entrance. There's a buzzer. He started toward it, but his hands felt heavier on the wheel. "You said elder care fraud," he said. "Guardianships? Yes, my mother had one." Evelyn did not rush to answer. That helped. People who rushed usually wanted to sound kind before they understood anything. Caleb kept going. "She had a small apartment, nothing fancy. She liked that place because she could see the trees from her kitchen." Her said she was confused. "A lawyer said the court needed to protect her. By the time I got anyone to listen, her things were in boxes, and her home belonged to someone else." Evelyn's face changed. He kept her voice steady. "What was her name?" Caleb did not answer. The light ahead turned red. He stopped. Rain tapped the roof. His chest felt tight, not from anger alone, but from the old shame that came with it. He had never known which hurt more, losing the fight, or realizing he had not even understood the rules until it was over. Evelyn opened the folder again. "I shouldn't do this in your car," she said. "If your mother's case touched the same network, you deserve to know why I asked for that office." Caleb looked at her. "Don't say things like that unless you know." "I know enough to check." She ran her finger down the page, turned to another sheet. This one was different. More names. Some marked with short notes, some with initials in the margin. Caleb told himself not to look. Then he saw it. His mother's name sat halfway down the page, plain as a knock on a locked door. For a second, the streetlight changed and he did not move. A horn sounded behind him, brief and impatient. Caleb barely heard it. Evelyn touched the dashboard lightly, not to hurry him, but to remind him where they were. He drove through the intersection with his eyes fixed ahead, but everything inside him had gone still. Beside his mother's name were words that made no sense at first. Filed objection, entered. Competency disputed. Supporting statement missing. Caleb's voice came out rough. "What does that mean?" Evelyn did not soften the answer. "It means she tried to object." The car seemed smaller around him. "No," he said. "Caleb? No. They told me she didn't understand what was happening. I'm telling you what this says." He pulled to the curb half a block from the office and stopped hard enough for the tires to hiss against the wet street. His hands stayed locked around the wheel. For years, the worst part had been believing his mother had slipped away from herself before he could reach her. Believing maybe the papers were cruel, but not false, Fuller. Believing maybe she had not fought because there had been nothing left in her strong enough to fight with. Now a thin sheet of paper sat in Evelyn's lap, and it was telling him something else. His mother had spoken and had buried her voice. Caleb turned toward Evelyn slowly. The suspicion had not vanished. The fear had not either. But something deeper than both had opened. "Take me to Gloria," she said quietly. "Fido." Caleb looked once more at the name on the list. Then he put the car in drive. The car moved before Caleb was sure he had made the decision. He pulled away from the curb with his mother's name still burning in his mind, as a memory now, but as proof. For years, that name had lived in him as a wound. On Evelyn's page, it had become something else. It had become unfinished business. Evelyn folded the list and put it back into the leather bag, careful with every edge of paper. The bag stayed on her lap, held by both hands now. Caleb noticed that. She did not hold it like a woman carrying notes. He held it like a woman carrying the last piece of a door that someone had tried to nail shut. "How much time do we have?" he asked. "Not much," she said, feeling out. "Gloria has to get the packet into the morning docket before the hearing starts. If it arrives late, Leonard Pike's side will argue it was handled improperly." The name was new to Caleb in the moment, but not in feeling. He had known men like that, long before he knew their names. Men with offices, clean collars, and voices that could turn a mother into a case number. Pike, Caleb said. Evelyn looked at him. You know him? I know the type. He did not argue. He handled some of the guardianship petitions. Your mother's file is connected to his office. Caleb's hands tightened around the wheel. For one sharp second, he wanted to turn the car around and find the man himself, not with a plan, not with sense. Just with the old helpless anger that had waited too long for a face. Then the headlights appeared behind them again. Evelyn saw them at the same time. Don't speed, she said. I wasn't going to. Russell wants us to panic. If you run lights or drive like we're hiding something, he can use that. Caleb almost laughed. There was no humor in him. So he follows us, and we're the ones who have to look polite. That's how men like him work. The sedan stayed 2 cars back, never close enough to force a move, never far enough to disappear. Caleb took a turn away from the courthouse district, then another, toward a line of service streets behind the hospital buildings. Evelyn glanced at him, but did not question it this time. I thought Gloria's office was east. It is. Then why are we going west? Because everybody who works around here knows the front roads, Caleb said. Deliveries don't use front roads. He guided the car behind a row of medical offices, the covered loading area, where the pavement shone under weak security lights. A box truck sat idling near a side entrance. Beyond it, a narrow lane cut between 2 buildings and opened toward older brick offices near the court complex. Evelyn looked back. The sedan slowed at the main intersection, then continued straight. Caleb did not feel proud. He felt tired, angry, and far too awake. You've done this before, Evelyn said. I've driven nurses, lawyers, patient families, night clerks, men with boxes they didn't want in the rain. People talk when they think the driver is furniture. May be the reason we make it. No, Caleb said. The reason we make it is because whatever you've got in that bag is real. Evelyn did not answer right away. It's real, she said at last. Real doesn't always survive procedure. They reached the back of a low office building, just as the rain began to thin into a cold mist. The sky over the city had gone from black to a tired gray. Morning was coming, whether they were ready or not. A single light burned over a rear door. Evelyn leaned forward. There, Caleb parked near the service entrance, leaving the engine on. Before either of them opened a door, a dark shape moved at the far end of the alley. Russell stepped into view. He did not rush. He did not shout. He walked toward them with an umbrella in one hand and his other hand empty at his side, as if he were approaching a neighbor about a blocked driveway. Caleb's stomach sank. Evelyn whispered, "Stay in the car." Russell stopped several feet from the hood, close enough for them to see his face through the wet windshield. He smiled faintly, then lifted his voice just enough to carry. "Dr. Marsh, this is a bad way to start a morning." Evelyn opened her door before Caleb could stop her. She kept the leather bag tight against her side. His eyes shifted to Caleb. "And you must be the driver." Caleb stepped out too. The cold hit his damp shirt at once. "I'm just giving a ride," he said. Russell's smile widened. "Then give it somewhere else. He's carrying is subject to review. If you interfere with protected records, you could lose that car, your license to operate it, and a great deal more." The words found their mark, because Caleb believed every one of them, but because men like Russell knew where fear lived. Caleb had rent to pay, a car note hanging over him, a life held together by work that could disappear with one ugly complaint. Somewhere in the quiet edge of his life was a child he never brought into danger, not even by name. Evelyn stepped forward. "He hasn't touched the evidence yet," Russell said. Caleb looked from Russell to the rear door. Buzzer. One light, maybe 20 feet. The bag was still with Evelyn. No one had broken anything. No one had crossed a line that could not be explained. He turned to Evelyn. "Go." Russell's face changed just slightly. "Mr. Warren," he said. And Caleb hated that the man had learned his name. "You may want to think carefully. People with custody concerns and unstable work histories should avoid court trouble." For a moment, the alley went silent. Evelyn froze. Caleb did not move toward Russell. He did not raise his voice. He simply looked at him and understood the kind of fight this was. Not fists, not threats shouted in the dark. Paper, pressure, fear dressed up as advice. Work history is none of your business, Caleb said. And neither was my mother's apartment. Russell's eyes narrowed. Caleb pressed the buzzers himself. A voice crackled through the intercom. Who is it? Caleb, Warren, he said, his throat tight. With Evelyn Marsh, the lock clicked. Evelyn slipped inside first. Caleb followed, keeping himself between the door and Russell until the metal frame shut behind them. The hallway smelled of old carpet and burnt coffee. At the end of it, Gloria Mendel stood in an open doorway with a cardigan over her blouse and a stack of folders under one arm. She looked smaller than Caleb remembered, softer. Her eyes went straight to the leather bag. You have it? She asked. Evelyn nodded. The drive, the list, the supporting notes. Gloria opened the office door wider. Then we stopped wasting time. Inside, the place was all file boxes, yellow lamps, and a conference table, scarred by years of people leaning over bad news. Now Evelyn set the bag down and removed the slim drive case. Gloria did not touch it immediately. She pulled on a pair of plain gloves, took out a receipt form, and wrote each item down before accepting it. Caleb watched the process with a strange impatience. Part of him wanted someone to tear the drive open and shout that everything was fixed. Instead, Gloria moved slowly, carefully, almost stubbornly. She has to do it this way, Evelyn said, seeing his face. If the chain is sloppy, we'll attack it. Gloria looked up. Pike will attack it anyway, Caleb met her eyes. You know he's ready? I know, he never walks into a room without 3 ways to make the injured person look unreasonable. Sentence settled over him. Gloria turned to a locked cabinet and removed a thin folder. She placed it on the table but kept her palm over it. Caleb, she said, your mother's objection is in here. He stopped breathing for half a second. Evelyn looked down. Gloria's voice softened, but only a little. It was logged, then buried behind a procedural note. I could never prove why. With what Dr. Marsh brought tonight, finally be able to connect it. May, Caleb repeated. May is better than what we had. Outside the office, footsteps passed in the hall. Gloria closed the folder and slid the drive receipt toward Evelyn. We have to get this filed before the hearing starts, she said. And you need to understand something now. Once we walk in, Pike will not argue the suffering. He will argue procedure. He will say the doctor mishandled documents. He will. You are an angry son with a personal grudge. He will try to make the truth look dirty before anyone reads it. Caleb looked at the folder beneath Gloria's hand. His mother's voice was in there. Not her whole life, her laugh in the kitchen, or the way she used to save grocery coupons in envelopes. Just one paper, one objection, one proof that she had known enough to fight. He straightened. Then we don't give him a reason. Gloria studied him for a moment. Evelyn did too. The first light of morning showed pale through the blinds as Gloria gathered the drive, the list, the receipt, and the thin folder into a single stack. Caleb followed them out of the office and into the cold hallway, no longer just the driver who had opened a car door in the rain. At the far end, near the entrance to the hearing rooms, a well-dressed man stood waiting, with a folder tucked beneath one arm. Gloria's mouth tightened. Leonard Pike. She said quietly. The man looked at Evelyn, then at Caleb, and smiled as if he had been expecting them all along. The smile did not reach his eyes. He stood near the hearing room doors, with a folder tucked under one arm, dry and pressed and calm, while Caleb still had rain in his hair and the ache of a sleepless night in his bones. It was the first little victory Pike wanted. He looked like the man who belonged there. Caleb looked like the man who had come in through the back door. Gloria did not slow down. Good morning, Leonard, she said. Gloria. Pike's eyes moved to Evelyn's bag, then to Caleb. You've had quite a busy morning. We have a filing to make. I'm sure you do. He stepped aside, with the practiced courtesy of a man who had never needed to raise his voice to block a room. I only hope, everyone here understands the difference between evidence and theatrics. Felt the words land exactly where Pike aimed them. The driver, the angry son, the man who did not know procedure. He had not said any of it yet, but Caleb could hear it coming, Inside, the hearing room was smaller than Caleb expected. A long table, a raised bench, rows of chairs filled with tired faces and folded hands. Some people looked like they had not slept either. Older men in worn jackets, women with purses held tight in their laps. A few adult children sitting stiffly beside parents who stared at the floor. Gloria placed the stack of papers on the table with care. Evelyn sat beside her, the leather bag now empty, except for the things already logged. Caleb remained standing until Gloria touched the chair next to her. "Sit," she said quietly. "Do not let him make you perform for him." The hearing began with words Caleb had heard too many times in offices, where people never looked him in the eye. Petition, review, competency, emergency placement, procedure. Pike rose smoothly. "Before anyone considers these materials," he said, "I must object to the manner in which they were obtained and delivered. A physician with an undisclosed investigative role, a private driver with a personal grievance, carried through the city before dawn, who hardly a trustworthy chain." Evelyn's face tightened, but she did not speak out of turn. Pike turned slightly toward Caleb. "We learn that this driver's own family history may be involved. That is unfortunate, of course. But emotion is not evidence." Caleb's chair scraped the floor before he knew he had moved. His hand closed around his wrist under the table. Not hard. Just enough. Caleb sat back down. Pike saw the movement and almost smiled. Gloria stood. The items were received, logged, submitted according to the emergency procedure available to this hearing. "The question is not whether Mr. Warren is upset," via sound. "The question is whether older adults were searched through medical statements that do not match the records beneath them." Evelyn added only what was needed. She explained the review, the mismatched evaluations, the repeated names, the pattern that tied separate cases together. She did not make speeches. She did not plead. Each sentence laid down one more board over a hole that Pike had counted on everyone falling into. Then Gloria opened the thin folder. Caleb knew before she said it. His mother's name was on the tab. The room seemed to pull away from him. Pike was speaking again, objecting to relevance, to timing, to anything that might keep the paper from being heard. His voice stayed smooth, but the smoothness had begun to crack around the edges. Gloria looked at Caleb. "You do not have to," she said softly. But he already knew that he did. He handed him the page. It was not long, not dramatic, not the kind of thing anyone would frame and hang on a wall. His mother had written in plain words that she understood her bills, knew her own address, consent to being removed from her apartment, and wanted her son notified before any decision was made. Caleb read the first line, and his voice almost failed. He looked down at the paper until the words steadied. Then he read the rest. No shouting, no accusation. Just his mother's voice, carried by his mouth into the room where it had once been stopped. By the time he finished, the silence had changed via sound. It was no longer the cold sense of procedure. It was the sense of peopleful understanding that a person had been present all along, hidden behind a folder. Pike stood again. This time, he had to look at the paper. "Document was not properly entered," he said. Gloria lifted another sheet. "That is the point." Evelyn slid the log drive receipt forward. "And this shows it was not the only one." For the first time, he did not answer right away. The rest unfolded without drama, which somehow made it stronger. The hearing officer ordered the files preserved. Gloria's request to reopen the connected cases was granted for review. Evelyn's materials were accepted into the record. Pike's objections were noted, then set aside one by one. When they left the room, Caleb did not feel victorious. Victory was too loud a word for what sat in his chest, felt hollowed out and lighter in the same breath. In the hallway, Pike passed him without the smile. Gloria watched him go. His firm will have to answer for those files now. So will the doctors who signed them. And Russell? Caleb asked. His threats are part of the complaint, Gloria said. He will have questions of his own to answer. Evelyn stood beside Caleb, her white coat folded over one arm now. Without the rain and the chase, he looked exhausted. "I'm sorry," she said. Caleb shook his head. You didn't bury her, no. But I brought you the shovel. That almost made him smile. Weeks later, the first letters went out. Not all at once, with the speed grieving families deserved. But they went out. Old guardianship files were reopened. Properties transfers were frozen for review. Pike lost the standing he had guarded so carefully, and the network that had hidden behind polite language began to come apart under brighter lights. Caleb kept a copy of his mother's objection in a plain envelope. He did not read it every day. He did not need to. It existed was enough. The first morning he drove for Gloria's volunteer program, the sky over Philadelphia was clear. An older woman sat in the back seat with a folder on her lap, this about a meeting that would decide whether she could stay in her own home. Caleb checked the mirror. "We'll get you there," he said. And this time, when he pulled away from the curb, just driving away from the past, he was carrying someone else toward a door that might finally open.